Hi children, I hope you all are safe at your home. With all my blessings, I welcome you all. The biology class. In this session, you shall learn about 6th chapter tissue. We have divided this chapter in various parts. Now let us begin with the last chapter. We recall that all living organisms are made up of cells. In unicellular organism, a single cell performs all basic functions. For example, in amoeba, a single cell carries out movement, intake of food and respiratory gases, respiration and excretion. But what about in multicellular organism? Like in elephant, there are millions of cells. Most of these cells are specialized to carry out a few functions. Each specialized function is taken up by a different group of cells. Since these cells carry out only a particular function, they do it very efficiently. Like in case of human beings, the muscle cells contract and relax to cause the movement. In the same way, nerve cells carry messages and blood flows to transport oxygen, food, hormones and waste materials and so on. But what about in plants? Vascular tissues conduct food and water from one part of the plant to other parts. Like xylem conducts water and phloem conducts the food from one part to the other part of the plant. So, in multicellular organisms, they show division of labor. Cells specializing in one function are often grouped together in the body. This means that a particular function is carried out by a cluster of cells at a definite place in the body. Like type A cells, respiration. Respiration is performed in the lungs, whereas type B cells, that is the cells which performs digestion in the stomach. Likewise, this cluster of cells are called tissues, is arranged and designed so as to give the highest possible efficiency of the functions. Means what? Here, this group of cells are designed in such a way that they do their work in a very perfect manner with a great perfection. So, the examples like blood, phloem, and muscles are all examples of the tissues. So let us now see tissues. Let us see the definition of a tissue. A tissue is a group of cells that are similar in structure and or work to achieve a particular function and forms the tissue. But do you know, children, how these tissues are formed? These tissues are formed by a process called cell division. Cell division is the process by which a mother cell divides into two daughter cells. In this way, a single cell divides into two, and from that two again they will divide into four. In this way, there will be an increase in the number of cells and there will be a group or a cluster of cells formed, and this cluster of cells form the tissues and they do a particular function in a very efficient manner. But this is seen in a multicellular organisms, as many number of cells comprises of a single organism. Here, in case of human beings, higher group of plants, then animals, this particular tissues perform a great role by a division of labor, means the work is assigned to different group of cells. I hope the concept is clear to you. Few questions for you. Are plants and animals made up of same type of tissues? Let us compare their structure and functions and try to answer this question. Do plants and animals have the same structure? Do they both perform similar function? There are some noticeable difference between these two. So here, what are those noticeable difference? Let us find out. Now, the first is about the plants. The plants are stationary or fixed. Here, these plants are throughout their life they are fixed in one place. They don't move. And the next difference is most of these tissues they have are supportive. Why they have a supportive tissues? Because these supportive tissues provide them with a structural strength, because they have to bear the change in the environmental conditions. And the third thing is most of these tissues are dead, since dead cells can provide mechanical strength as easily as live ones and need less maintenance. So if we compare that too with the animals, in case of animals you see there is a totally different scenario. In animals, on the other hand, move around in search of food, mates and shelter. So what here? Animals have to move from one place to another for three reasons. And what are the three reasons? In search of food, in search of mate and for shelter. Second point is they consume more energy as compared to plants. Most of the tissues they contain are living. As they have to move from one place to another, the work is more in case of the animals, movement is more in case of animals. Most of the tissues they contain are living. Then third point, another difference between the animals and the plant is in the pattern of growth. The growth in the plant is limited to certain regions, while this is not so in animals. As we see the plant some parts are there, the stem or the leaves or the root region keeps on growing throughout their life, but this is not in case of the animals. So there are some tissues in the plants that divide throughout their life, and these tissues are localized in certain regions based on the dividing capacity of the tissues. Various plant tissues can be classified as growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Then the sixth part what we are going to discuss is the cell growth in animal is more uniform. So there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing regions in the animals. The structural organization of the organs and organ system is far more specialized and localized in case of complex animals than even in very complex plants. So what we find here is in animals the growth is uniform, means it is not that one for few days the hand will grow and few days the legs will grow. It is not in that way. So there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing tissues in case of animals. Now next is the fundamental difference reflects the different mode of life pursued by these two major group of organisms, particularly in their different feeding methods. It is with reference to the complex animal and the plant bodies that we will now talk about the concept of tissue in some detail. Let us compare between the plants and animals. As you see, two different organisms, one is the plant and the other one is the animal. As you can see, the animal is continuously in motion, whereas the plant is sedentary. Do plant move from one place to another? Obviously your answer is no. So They are differently adapted for sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary in the sense in the fixed position. They are fixed in one position. Whereas active and locomotion on the other hand, in case of animals, this contribute to the difference in the organ system design. So here we see plants and animals. Difference between the plants and animals. Based on that, what we have earlier discussed, let us classify this. Now plants, they are non-motile as they are fixed in one place. What about the tissues? So they have the dead tissues. And what is the function of dead tissues? To provide support, and as they are dead, they require less maintenance. Next, if you discuss about the types of tissues, they have two types. One is called dividing, the other one is called non-dividing. We will discuss in detail about this in the coming session. No uniform growth means what? Here the growth is restricted to specific areas, like in case of the stem region and the root region, they keep on growing and throughout their life, and they provide the height for the plant. So in this way, some regions are there, they are not growing, like in case of the fruits or in case of the flowers, they need not grow throughout their life. So these particular regions have non-dividing tissues. So in this way, the plants here are non-motile. They consist of dead tissues. Then they have two types of tissues that can be dividing and non-dividing. And to talk about their growth, there is no uniform growth, means they can grow in any direction, in any way. So what about the animals? Animals are they are motile in the sense they move from one place to another. As we have discussed before, they move for the reason of why they move. They move for the reason of shelter, food, in search of food and in search of mate. Then as they continue to move, they are very active, they are having a living tissues. And if you talk about their growth, it is a uniform growth, and they are having a only dividing tissues. There is no any kind of non-dividing tissues, means they have only the dividing tissues. I hope the concept is clear to you. Let's move. So here is a points in which you have to write. In the points you have to differentiate between plant tissues and animal tissues. So the first point of the plant tissue is tissues organization. Tissue organization is targeted towards stationary habit of plants, means they don't move from one place to another. For that reason, the tissue organization is targeted to stationary habit. But what about in animals? The tissue organization is targeted towards the mobility of animals as they move from one place to another. Second point is organization is simple. Here the organization is complex. So the third point, many of these tissues are dead. For example, cork. That we will discuss in detail later on in the session. Most of the tissues are living in case of animals. Then fourth point is growth is confined to certain regions. In certain regions keep on growing throughout the life, and certain regions do not show the growth throughout the life. Growth is limited to areas in case of animal tissue. Then fifth point is about the energy requirement. Less maintenance energy is required in case of plants, and more maintenance energy is required in case of animals. And the sixth point is plants grow continuously throughout their life, whereas animals, after reaching the maturity stage, animals do not show further growth. So we see that plants grow continuously, and animals, after reaching the maturity at certain age, the growth will stop and the development keep on taking place, but the growth will stop. After reaching maturity, what happens? Animals do not show further growth. Okay, now this is all about the concept or introduction of the chapter, where we have seen regarding the difference between unicellular and multicellular organisms, and what is the functions of this multicellular and unicellular organisms, how they perform this all, with the concept of tissues, what is tissue and how these tissues are formed. The tissue is nothing but cluster of cells or group of cells, and how this group of cells are formed. These are formed by the process called cell division. If you are clear with the concept, children, for you have to write the answers neatly in your biology notebook. The question given here are: what is tissue? What is the utility of tissue in the multicellular organisms? Along with that, I am giving you an assignment or an activity in the form of activity. You have to perform this for the better understanding of the next part of the lesson, which is meristematic tissue. Regarding the meristematic tissue, these meristematic tissues are related to the plant tissue. So the activity goes like this: you have to get 2 onion bulbs and 2 jars. You have to fill the jars with water. Then what you have to do is you have to place the onion bulbs, one in each jar. Then you have to, like how it is been given in the pictures, figure 6.1, you do exactly like that. Then observe the growth of the roots in both the bulbs for a few days. You have to do this activity for a few days, means you are going to be engaged with this particular activity at least for 1 week. Measure the length of the roots on day 1, 2 and 3. So what you have to do is you have to measure the length of the roots from the day 1, 2 and 3. Then on the 4th day, what you have to do is cut the root tips of the onion bulb in jar 2, about 1 centimeter. After this, observe the growth of the roots in both the jars and measure their length each day for 5 more days and record the observation in the table. I have provided the table in this picture. You have to draw in the same manner and you have to note down your recordings or your observation. Okay, and this is what the assignment for you. Based on this activity only, we are going to continue the next concept. And till, stay tuned for the upcoming video, that is on the plant tissue, which we are going to discuss in the next session. Thank you.